So joined here today with Tony Matthews. Used to serve with him in the army back in Chivenor in North Devon, wasn't it?
Yeah, a while ago.
Yeah, seems like it. Both got a bit of beards now, eh? Bit of civvy life. Yeah, so Tony, when he left the forces, went into counselling, yeah? And he's now got his own practice, Tony Toad Counselling. So he's cracking on with that, and it's doing very well. So I've asked him to join us today. We're trying to start this whole videocast, podcast, just try to mix it up a little bit in the groups. There's a lot of mental health groups out there on Facebook, and scrolling through them, they all seem to do the same thing. It's a lot of memes, a lot of which is good. It's encouraging. With ours being Mental Health Anonymous, it gives people the chance to actually speak out without publishing the name, as you'll see from the descriptions. So I'm hoping that will bring some courage to people to be able to speak out and hopefully get some advice and guidance that way. And we all do try our best to help, but I've got to reiterate that I'm not a counsellor. I've just had experiences. Guys like Tony, there's a few others on the page as well. I've got mental health courses, awareness courses, and a couple that are trained to be counsellors. So that all helps. And they will come out when they need actual guidance, people need actual guidance, etc. So today, what we've been asked to talk about is postnatal depression. So all I'm going to do is ask Tony what it is about, because I don't know a lot about it at all. I've had 3 kids, and I can't think of my wife ever going through anything like that. Maybe she has, but I'll find out after this. But yeah, it was just to talk to you about that, Tony, if that's all right, my man.
Sure.
Cool. So, facts about postnatal depression. What can you tell us about
that? If women do suffer with it, it's usually around 3 or 4 days after giving birth. They're called the baby blues. And it usually subsides not long after, a week, maybe a couple of weeks, something like that. If it goes on longer, say for 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks and further, it's then classed as postnatal depression. And with that, it's usually 1 in 10 women that will end up with that. But what a lot of people don't realise is that the fathers or partners of these people can also suffer with postnatal depression as well.
Okay, right, okay. Never knew that. Right, okay. So, like, what kind of symptoms are people looking out for? Like, because you can look out for symptoms within yourself, and obviously, if your partner's around, you can pick up these kind of symptoms in your partner as well. Maybe that's the time to act on it.
Sometimes it can be confused with just depression, because a lot of the symptoms are pretty similar: low confidence, poor concentration, lack of energy, motivation, low mood, irritability, feelings of guilt, rejection, not feeling good enough, thoughts of harming yourself, and to the extreme, thoughts of harming your baby as well, because it comes in with not being able to manage or cope with the crying and the feeding and the changing, because it's all a constant thing for several months.
Right, okay. So is this more for like somebody that's had their first child?
No.
Like the feeling of not being able to cope and stuff like that?
No, there's been, because I don't deal with postnatal depression myself a lot. It can be quite a specialised area as well, which the NHS does deal with. I've dealt with it a little bit, but what was the question?
What was the question? What was the question? What did I just ask you? Oh yeah, so if it's your first child, is it going to be like your second child, third child? Is it that feeling of I'm not worthy? Can I do this?
I mean, you can have 10 children and not have an issue with it. You can have 1 child and postnatal depression. You can have 3 or 4 children, and out of one of those births, you will suffer with postnatal depression, possibly. It's all depends on circumstances as well. It's not all down to just giving birth. It can be a traumatic birth. That can cause issues, physical and emotional stress, relationship difficulties, being isolated, having no support around. So if, like in the army especially, if you don't have family that are around, you can be quite isolated, and it can stem from there. But yeah, there's loads of factors that can go into it, unfortunately.
Yeah. So like talking about support there, like that's the next little heading. What kind of support people can get for it? If they, if I'm hoping that I know my partner well enough that if we ever had another child, that I'd be able to pick up some signs. And again, the more and more I dive into mental health, the more I feel competent enough to pick up signs, symptoms of people that are going down that route of depression.
Yeah.
So what kind of support is there out there for people, and when should you intervene, if that makes sense, even with yourself or with somebody else?
Yeah, like I was saying earlier, the baby blues usually come in 3 to 4 days after giving birth, and they can last for a few weeks sometimes, or just a few days.
Yeah.
But if it goes on for longer than that, and you do notice, a constant low mood, irritability, and all that sort of stuff, you do need to factor in the stresses of having a baby as well. All the crying, the feeding, the screaming, the nappy changing. It's pretty much a constant every few hours. And that's probably where the baby blues come in 3 to 4 days after the birth. There's no real reason as to why. Nobody knows, why it happens or where it comes from. It just does, and we've learned to manage and deal with that. But as I've said, it does present itself just like depression as well anyway. So if you've got a young baby, then it's normally seen as postnatal depression, especially when it's very, very ongoing.
Right, okay. So like support-wise, NHS, doctors, GPs, yourselves?
Yep, all of those. You can go privately. You can look for people that specialise in postnatal depression. Just go to the doctors, or you call the doctor yourself, and say the troubles that are going on at home that the wife or your partner can't manage.
Okay. So you've got midwives as well. Can they help with it?
Oh,
midwives.
Yeah, when you've got the baby weigh-ins and that every other week or whatever, to make sure the baby's, the midwives. I don't think they're called midwives anymore that come over. I was trying to think of the name there. There's somebody else, isn't there? But the health nurse or whatever they call it comes around to weigh the baby, that sort of thing. They'll chat to the mother and see what they're doing and how they're feeling and things like that.
And the mother will build up more of a rapport with somebody they're seeing every other week as well, wouldn't they? So that might be more comfortable for them just to open up. And these people are actually trained, am I right in saying that? Then to be able to guide and help with these kind of situations.
Have basic mental health training and stuff like that as well. So they'll be able to identify any long-term issues and stuff as well. But they definitely do check in for baby blues and postnatal depression and things like that as well.
Right, that's cool, mate. So we've talked about the support. So what about like treatment? And we talked about this briefly before we went live, and we're not live, mate. I'm just letting you know. We talked about this briefly before we did press the record button about treatment. And like I said, the more I dive into this, the mental health, I'm seeing the same 3 things in treatment on all types of cases. So you've got exercise.
Yep.
You've got talking, which I'm glad people are really, really starting to on the group, and healthy eating, healthy lifestyle. Them 3 things. And it's basically being human.
I mean, the exercise might slip a little bit because of the exhaustion and tiredness and things like that, obviously.
Okay.
But definitely diet, that'll definitely help. All the nutrients, the vitamins and all the goodness and stuff that's in healthy eating. So definitely keep a manage on that. And obviously if you're breastfeeding, not you personally, but in general. You know, you've got to keep that milk flowing and keep it healthy. Sleep, that's another issue. So, you know, taking turns, you know, one of you sleeping downstairs or wherever, you know, out of the room, to be able to get a few hours sleep without being interrupted. One of the issues that people forget as well is that young mothers, as they're going through the 9-10 months pregnancy, the body changes, chemicals, hormones, all that imbalanced stuff, and it's very similar to that of the menstrual cycle, you know, where you get the hormonal changes and things like that, but it's more ongoing through pregnancy. So there is that to take on board and to consider as well, all the hormonal imbalances and changes that have gone on. Because I don't know if you've noticed with your wife, but they're with new children, they're very or more alert. You know, they'll wake up a lot quicker than you will.
100%. Yeah.
To baby moving or crying or whatever. If you don't hear it, they will, because they become more attuned, which is where all the hormones and stuff change.
Yeah.
The way
I'm glad you said that, because I used to get shouted at a lot, but she used to think I ignored, but I did not ignore. Like, there'd be times where she'd be like proper kicking me in bed, going tend to her, and I'm like, what are you on about? Still didn't hear it, but yeah, like you said, like obviously if they're more heightened and alerted to it, don't stand a chance, do we? But yeah, you definitely chip in. So like, what other treatments? There's something else I keep seeing coming up, and I confuse it a lot, and I don't know if other people might, or it might just be me, but CBT therapy.
Nice.
Now I always go down the route, is that cannabis stuff?
No,
but it's not at all, is it?
Cognitive behavioral therapy.
Right.
It's a process of here and now sort of treatment where you deal with what's going on now, and there are tools and exercises and stuff that you can go through to help manage and deal with the depression, the stress, the trauma, and you know, in the short term, to get it managed and under control, to teach you to adjust as well. It's a very handy therapy to have, and it is one of the NHS's go-to therapies for a lot of things as well.
Cool.
And it probably will be the first thing that is offered.
Right. Okay. And that brings us on nicely to antidepressants, drugs. Now, I don't know. I've got my own opinions about it, but what's yourself with that then?
If we're talking pregnancy, postnatal depression, and things like that, in that sort of case, that is something to be discussed with the doctors, obviously, because especially with breastfeeding,
right.
If a mother is breastfeeding, is anything passed on through the milk and things like that? There's a lot of drugs and stuff that I said, when you read the little leaflet things or go to the doctors, they say not to take while you're breastfeeding or while you're pregnant. So that is definitely something else to keep an eye on. Antidepressants in general, if you feel that's the only option, then you know, take that. But there are other alternatives, like you said, with the healthy eating, exercise, and sleep. Those are the three main things that we need as human beings to survive, basically, to stay balanced, should we say. Overall mental health, physical health, and all that, it's all the same, you know, it all contributes to the same. Yeah. Cool.
And then just causes of it as well. Kind of hard, isn't it, because everybody's different, but from what I researched, causes of like a history of mental health issues in the family, or yourself previously before giving birth, you know, difficulty in a relationship I've got written down here as well, with yourself, with your partner. So it is all about support and that intervening when you know.
If you've got financial, personal concerns, housing issues, you know, it all builds up, and it's all
builds up.
Yeah. But the reality is as well that, you know, if you're a couple, you can both suffer with it. There is another name for they call it a male version, but at the end of the day, it's postnatal depression, and you can both suffer with it. But yeah, I think with isolation, that's one of the biggest issues, especially with young mothers that have just given birth. Sometimes they can feel isolated, especially if there's no family around. So a lot of support, baby groups, things like that. People coming round, if they don't feel up to going out, then, go around, visit, that sort of thing. Try to lift spirits and all that sort of stuff. But if it is postnatal depression diagnosed, then there may be a little bit more than just having the basic support around you as well. You may need to go to see somebody, have CBT or other talking therapies as well.
So just some, I'm trying to think of some scenarios, or maybe just one, but the anxiety of admitting that you are feeling that way. Now, if you are feeling that way, your mind races, as you know and I know. The anxiety massively kicks in. So if I was a young mother and just given birth and I felt this way, can I talk out about it? Right in my head now, I'd be feeling, will there be any kind of jeopardy towards my child possibly being taken away from me if I'm feeling these ways?
Oh God,
yeah.
No. That's where the support will come in from friends and family if they're around. Your partner. You may not want to detach from your child at that time because it's so early days.
Yeah.
But if it's needed for you to have a break for a few hours or a day or so, then it's definitely worth thinking about.
Right, quality, mate. Right, I think we covered everything there. So I hope that has helped possibly somebody on the group, and we'll try and we'll see if we can get this out onto YouTube on your channel as well, mate.
Sure.
Might help some people out. So that was just one subject we've covered. It's a bit of a first one we've done, so we will develop it. It won't always be with Tony. We'll be doing it with other people, people that have gone through things themselves that want to speak out, which would be massively brave. And again, every time somebody talks out or there's a bit of advice that Tony's just gone through there, it's helping somebody out in the background. They might not realise it, but it's massively helping. So yeah, thanks very much, Tony.
Pleasure.
And any suggestions for anything else we want to talk about, just put them in the comments below, and we'll go from there and we'll see what we can do. Excellent. Right. Thanks very much, buddy.
See you
later.